think a lot of times people just overthink too much in general in life.
We're building habits, wonderful habits, hustle.
That's a lot of eggs.
Welcome back to
Ami's house.
We have a very special guest here today, the real Jen Cohen in the house, but remote. That's the best we could do. I know we prefer to be in person. These give me next time for round 2 we'll have you in person for sure. Welcome to Ami's house, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me. I was just kind of blowing sunshine up your butt, telling you how funny I think you are. Which
let's say that again.
I do.
Say that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you are. You're hilarious. I like I said, you're so funny. I'm so happy to be here and meet you guys in person. And thanks for having me.
Of course. So I actually, your podcast is called Habits and Hustle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
And I want to talk about, I'm in a place now where I've applied certain things where I've been able to change certain habits professionally over the years. But in terms of health and fitness, like that's the frontier I'm facing right now. And I'm curious because there's so much like advice culture out there and hustle culture about changing bad habits and stuff. But for me, when it comes to like health and food and things like that, I don't just have bad habits, but I'm in like a pattern of failure where like me trying to change a habit actually instigates this whole pattern that eventually leads to it not working. Every Saturday and Sunday, I'm ready for a new habit. And Monday, I'm like ready to eat clean and be good and start working out. And by Wednesday, I pop a crouton with the salad and then it's all over by the end of the week,
Yeah,
so I'm just curious.
I totally get it.
Not just building a habit, but like breaking a pattern. Any thoughts and advice on that? When you're really deep in it, my dad bod's expanding by the day, so I need your help.
Yeah, I think you look. I think you look okay though. But yeah, listen,
I'm sitting on purpose.
Okay, is that why you do the podcast sitting? Okay.
We were gonna do it shirtless, and then we decided not to.
Not to? Yeah, I think that's probably a good
do the whole
idea.
Thing shirtless.
Well, aren't you guys Orthodox or modern Orthodox?
Yeah, modern Orthodox. That's a big problem too. So every weekend, it's like we take a plunge into the deep, dark abbess of carbs.
Were you saying that we can't do podcast shirtless because we're Orthodox?
No, what I'm saying is, I was making another kind of comment, but probably just more for the fact that you would, maybe I'm wrong, you tell me, but I would say you kind of veer more towards the conservative side of things. Like you're not going to be running around naked, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say probably.
Conservative has a double meaning in the Jewish world.
Yeah, I thought you meant like
That's
big
true.
C, like right-wing conservative.
No,
that's
no.
that guy, not as much me.
No,
Easy. Don't out me just yet. But
well, you know what? I think we're getting a bad rap for being not just yet. If you're not liberal or left or woke, then you're automatically considered conservative. That's kind of like, the pendulum has either swung one way or another. There's no happy medium, God forbid.
Oh yeah. Far right means anything that doesn't agree with the woke dogma. You're a far right. That lumps everybody in to who just wants to talk about things more openly and whatever.
Absolutely. And have like a
but about my
dialogue,
dad
have
bod.
an
Help me
opinion.
first. Help
But
me.
that's
help
not
me.
why we're wearing shirts.
Okay. I think a lot of times people get very overwhelmed and they can psychologically go down this like bad black hole when they put too much pressure on themselves. So what I think is that a good thing to do is like start small. Don't overwhelm yourself with these big lofty goals. Do something that's realistic. Like for example, maybe just add walking into your life. Like add a way that you can move your body more, burn some calories and get into a habit that way. Like I don't know what you do regularly, but I think a lot of times when we try to like we try to eliminate too many things too quickly. And then once we basically do it again, we get really depressed, we get really upset, and we beat ourselves up, and then it becomes a whole cycle. So what I just think is like a great thing to start doing is moving your body and exercising and creating one meal a day where you have the same thing every day. I know it sounds kind of boring, but that way you're kind of like, you kind of are setting yourself up for a pattern and of success. Because if you, for example, breakfast, I had the same breakfast every single day for like 30 years because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have that to be something that's going to like stop me from basically stop me from like making bad decisions later on. So if I start my day off correctly and right, off the right foot, it allows me to make better decisions throughout the day. So that's the first, those are the two things I would say.
What is that breakfast, by the way?
I have eggs every morning with a grapefruit, because I think protein is like, it's satiating. It keeps you full longer. It helps with, I can go into a whole long thing, but it also, like, I know exactly what I'm having, how many calories, not like I'm counting calories. That's not what I'm here to tell you. But my point
I may have like 15 eggs. That's the problem.
Yeah, I have like 7 eggs, by the way.
70? No, 7.
7.
Okay.
Seven.
That's a lot of eggs.
At least you have things in place where you got that kind of checked off your list. That's not going to be where you slip. Right. Where then, if you make a better decision for your breakfast, chances are for your lunch and for your dinner, you won't make as many mistakes. You'll kind of keep you on path. And then
Tim Ferriss says, "Win the morning, win the day."
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss. I can. That's a great quote. I love that, and it's the truth. I have this thing that I do every single week called Never Miss a Monday, which is you have to work out every Monday no matter what, because you're starting off, you're basically kicking off your week on the right foot. You're starting off well. And like I said, you're like creating these are habits that you create where it kind of lessens the opportunity or chance that you're going to make more mistakes later. Because if you start off well, you're going to want to you're going to try to stay as consistent as long as possible. But no one's perfect, by the way. Let me tell you, like, not at all, but baby steps, small steps.
But then how do you bounce back after you mess up?
You just do it.
Like, like when you miss a Monday.
Oh, well, don't miss a Monday. That's the whole point. Never miss a Monday. Right. That's the whole thing,
So you've missed a Monday. It's Tuesday. You should just party then and then restart. Just go down the rabbit hole of eat pie for the week.
Just straight to rock bottom and back up.
But that's what people do, right? They screw up and then they think it's all over for them. And then they continually make bad decisions because of that one bad decision. And then they let themselves go down this bad rabbit hole. And that's how things happen, versus just like kind of accepting what happened, realizing, okay, I screwed up, and then move on to the next. Like not every day is going to be perfect at all. Like if you have 80% if you're good 80% and you screw up 20%, you're still good to go.
Yeah, I like this idea of starting really small. That's true, because I feel like with so many endeavors, like people have approached me on starting new creative endeavors, for example, and they buy all of this equipment. Oh, I got all these microphones. I got the right gear. So they get everything and instead of incrementally building towards what they need at a given moment, they get all of these things and end up using none of it because they've taken on too big a task and it all just falls apart. But if you build very incrementally by just doing one thing consistently, I could see that working. I
think a lot of times people just overthink too much in general in life. And this is not just with fitness, obviously. It's about everything, right? We overthink ourselves to a place where we overthink to not even acting. And that's like our biggest detriment, right? Versus someone who's just like impulsive and just starts and figures shit out as they go. That is literally what I talk about. That is my podcast, by the way. That is my book, by the way. That is like literally my entire platform is stop overthinking, just act. You'll figure shit out. And if something doesn't work out for you, guess what? Another opportunity will present itself by you just going down that path of action, right?
It's very Gary V-esque, actually, and I'm not just bringing that up. I used to do a lot of Gary V parody impressions. One of my first like TikTok at-bats. But he's big on like not overthink. Like all these things will reveal itself to you, right? Like if you apply that hustle, right? But it's true. I feel like most people. There's also like a clip I saw of Chris, Modern Wisdom. Chris
Willix. Yeah. Of course.
Chris Willix, who's like thinking about the thing is not doing the thing. Talking about the thing is not doing the thing. Writing down the thing is not doing the thing. 95% of 85% of women actually think that 4% of men think that doing the thing is not doing the thing. But he talks about all the things about doing the thing except doing the thing is what most people are living in. That space.
Absolutely. That was a great impression.
Thinking about it.
Can you do me now? Next, do me. I want you to.
Give me an hour. Give me an hour.
Okay.
I'm cooking. We're not really talking, Jennifer, at all. I'm just studying here.
Good. I love it. How do you do that? Like, how are you able to do impressions? Like, how long does it take you to get ready for that?
So I start small. I start small by just
Baby
implementing
steps.
one thing.
Yeah.
With impressions, it's interesting. It's more like a light switch. Like you kind of want, it's like a puzzle piece. Like you sort of are watching somebody, and then there's always like a signature thing that they do that sort of clicks the essence of the person in. And then it's like a harder thing to break down technically than say other, like, you know, how to learn a song or something like that, where there's like a formula to it.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, there's different like things that people do, different ticks they have. Like, you know, if I'm doing a Jordan Peterson, it's well, you know, and then I'm there, you know, and then, you know, modern wisdom is the accent, and, you know, 70% of 5% of men. So there's different things, and it's like there's getting it and cracking the impression, and then there's the refinement process. But the first step is like getting it to click in place.
I totally get it. Were you always this way as a kid, or in terms of is the impressions the crux of what you do in terms of your comedy, or is it much more robust than that?
It's interesting. I think my ears as a kid, doing impressions, I've been doing forever. I didn't like start learning. I've always been copying and mimicking. And I think that's what taught me sort of how to sing. I used to copy how other singers would sing. And that sort of gave me a style as a vocalist and a singer. And my first sort of major professional at-bat creatively was in music. I have a band, and we started like, you know, in writing original music and doing that and finding my own voice musically. And then on the comedy side, impressions were always a very easy go-to to just have fun with friends socially, you know, doing teachers and imitating, you know, community leaders and stuff like that. So I've always been doing it socially. And then in the past couple of years, like through TikTok and social media, impressions was a great outlet to serve up content in those platforms and build an audience. And now I do a lot of stand-up too. So I integrate it as like, you know, seasoning on the act, you know, doing
right.
Like
and how about your partner in crime there? Are you also a comedian?
No.
Okay.
I'm a writer, so I write like TV and film, and I do like fiction and like just more for fun stuff.
Oh, okay.
Michael's got the wit. He's got the wit. He doesn't perform yet. We're gonna work on that. But Michael writes a lot.
Well, I mean, as you were talking, actually, my mind was completely wandering to the way I could improve my habits and hustle on like my own writing. Honestly, I was just like totally in my own head there, thinking about like, what am I not doing in my own career at this point that could like help me. So maybe we'll do a session later.
Yeah, no, seriously. You know, it's funny, like this. So I know we're talking about habits or whatever, but I just to kind of give you an idea, or your audience an idea of like, because I don't know if we're cross-pollinate that often, but so my entire message in life is about being bold. And my whole thing is, it's not about boldness is actually a much more important trait than being intelligent. Boldness is actually the secret sauce to success. It's not intelligence, because when you are too smart, you tend to overthink everything, like we just talked about. You tend to think of all the things why not to do something, or all the bad possible outcomes that will happen, negative outcomes that will happen. So you tend to do nothing.
You think I do that?
Overthink? Yeah.
About the negative outcome.
I've seen this instinct where he'll be like, yeah, but if I do it that way, that's not really the way, and kind of second guess to paralysis. You've gotten better at it.
The more success I've had, actually, the more I tend to think that way. Like when I was first starting out, when I was much more wide-eyed and determined, and passionate, I think I was less. I wouldn't think about any of the negative.
Try
reasons.
everything.
And the more brick walls I think I run into, the more it's like, I guess it's like a bit of a problem I've had over the last like 2 or 3 years.
Well, discouragement can do that, or things not meeting expectations in a certain way can cause another type of paralysis, where you're like, well, if I exert all this effort and it leads to this, then like I'm not going to waste that time.
True. Yeah.
You know what I think? I think naivety is a strength, because when you don't know what you don't know, you're not as scared as much of what the outcome is. But the more experience you have, and the more expertise you have, more seasoned you become, you are much more likely to stop in your tracks. And that's why when people are kids, right, they'll try anything and everything. They'll climb up a tree. They'll do all these things because they don't know how bad it can be if it fails. When you're an adult, though, it gets harder and harder, right? Because you have you have the feeling of rejection. You know how it's going to be. You have the experience. So like that's what I think. I think naivety is like actually the best thing that we have, right? And so that's why when you're young, you should try everything, because you build up that, like you said, the calluses of experience to stop you from your start.
One thing that's helped me a lot is in all the endeavors that didn't meet a certain expectation I thought they would, I actually perceive them intentionally so as not failures, but just taking unexpected turns on a pathway towards a greater macro success about everything. Like I read a book by Scott Adams, How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. Do you know that book? Are you familiar with it?
I am. And also I love the whole messaging of that, right? Like that's what it is. You fail to success.
Yeah, and everything you did in this endeavor actually equipped you with a skill stack that you acquire towards the next thing. It's not like I wasted time here when I could have been doing this. It's like, no, I did all this. I'm going to extrapolate from that all of these skills that I gained and apply it to the next thing. And with each one, become more equipped to a general, more grand success or macro success that you apply the skills you acquire along the way.
It's like transferable skills, right? Like nothing's ever a waste, right? Because you can transfer those skills from one thing to another. Like I used to be in the music world, by the way, years ago. And it was like, and then I ricocheted, pivoted to fitness and to a million different things. And I took it's the same skill set, right? That you learned from one thing about how to deal with people, sales, marketing. It's basically just like, it's just rinse and repeat, just changing what the cog is, So, but like I said, the problem is we are our own worst enemy. We get ourselves, we tend to have a lot of self-doubt and think of all the things that like why we're not good enough. And like, honestly, I always look at a situation and think to myself, like, well, why not me? I mean, I look at all these people I've had on my podcast and I've met with through business and life. And quite frankly, and I'm sure you too would agree, like sometimes you meet these people who are super successful and you're like, how did that person really get to that level? Like once you really know and peel the layers off the onion, I'm like, if that bozo can do it, so can I. And so I always go into every situation with this whole like, well, why not me? If it can happen to them, it can happen to me. And like, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I won't be any worse off this second than I will be the next second if it doesn't work out, right? I'll be right where I started from. So it's like these not mantras, but like these ideologies and ways to reframe ideas so it doesn't stop you from attempting to kind of go after what you want.
Yeah, I think we're all such like judgmental creatures, and you watch people trying things and taking risks, and there's a part of you that when you're the subject doing it, you're judging yourself as harshly as you do these other people. And so how they look to you. So having that judgmentalism applied to yourself is very hard for people. It's like it hurts to know, like, am I the person now out there and everyone's watching? And the truth is, yes, but so what? And that's part of the boldness I think you're talking about, where I think I try not to do that. Like when there's people out there trying things, like I try to applaud everybody's effort. Obviously, I have strong opinions about such and such this and such that, or, whatever. And I'm happy to shed light on that if I'm indulged. But the fact that there are people out there like even trying things and taking a swing, I always applaud that, because that whole first, step is like, there's very few people who even make that percentage of like being willing to try to do things and put themselves out there.
Also, look at you, right? You're a comedian, right? Like you must be so just familiar. I mean, like you probably have you've had so much rejection. Like your entire career choice is literally being rejected constantly, right? For different gigs, different jobs. Like if anybody can talk on resilience and how to get back up after falling, it should be someone like you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been killing for so long, I don't even remember. No, I'm just kidding. You're totally right. You build a foundation to success ultimately on tons of different failures and learning along the way. And like, I find that also, like I talk about this a lot, people who like succeed too early or things click or spark too early, it's hard to sustain that because they haven't built enough muscle to be comfortable with success and know how to sustain it. You haven't learned along the way how to build a foundation by which like that building of success can sit on. All of a sudden you're like, I've seen people where it goes really fast and then they're like, they don't have the judgment. They haven't had the experience with bad actors or building a team around them. And it becomes challenging to navigate that when it happens too fast. So I
was going to say, like, don't you feel like that I should ask you, and like, what was like the one thing, one failure that you had that actually ended up being a really big success? Like at the time you didn't realize it was a fail. Like you were super upset about it not working out, but it actually ended up working out to your advantage somewhere else.
This is one of those questions that's like such a good question, and I don't have available to me the answer that I'll think of later, which is interesting. But I think that you sort of have your notions of what success looks like. I'm still in a band, and we're active, and we make a lot of music together. We release a lot of original music. We compose for film and TV. But you have that initial sort of mapped out version of what success looks like. I think that in the early days, we're within the band itself, like, two of us are Orthodox, so we weren't going to like tour on the weekends. There were a lot of limitations towards the classic model of success that a band implements in order to succeed, going on the road and touring with other acts. So there was a lot of opportunities we had to turn down in those early days, and made choices that, if it stings when you're finally up against an opportunity and you just can't do it. Working with a booking agent says, okay, but what about this Shabbos? What about that one? Can you do that one? I know you can't do the first three, but what about this one? I'm like, none of them. And like, there's big names we could be touring with. So I think it's very hard in the early days where you like every opportunity in your head you think could be the opportunity. That could be the thing that makes the difference. And to feel like you're missing that kills. But I think with time, I actually, with things not living up to their expectations, you realize that there's no real one thing that makes the difference. It's just the overall effort of showing up and putting in the work. So it makes it easier to pass on things. It makes it easier to miss opportunities because you don't put all your stake and by buying into this false narrative into, they got discovered on the Tonight Show and there was this one moment and then the Beatles became huge. I think we're sold this narrative of that's how it works. But I actually think the Beatles were working clubs for 11 years before a 6-year hyper successful run. And so everything is built off of that. I think in those early days, had we gone down that path, like I would have made choices that compromised values. I wasn't willing to do that. I think it kept us protected from the flashiness of Hollywood and like missing out with family and quality time that in the long run I think has been so much more fulfilling and meaningful. So it kind of protects you from being overzealous, especially in early days when you're first starting out. Having a grounded sense of values, religion, community, family kept us grounded and protected from probably a lot of bad choices that would have happened along the run.
That's a really beautiful. That's a great perspective to have, right? That you think it's an accumulative thing versus like a one thing that kind of really kind of
because there are certain opportunities that do happen,
point.
and you think it's going to. There are certain opportunities that do happen. You think it's going to do this, and the needles get moved very gradually, and things do happen along the way. But it's along the way. It's not the things that happen that like make or break. It's the way. It's that effort that you're putting in along the way that these little moments happen. And I've developed a sense that no matter what, if I miss something that seems like a big opportunity, it's always going to sting a little bit in different respects, depending on how much I'm looking forward to, whatever. But I'm able to let things go because as long as in the long run I'm showing up and putting in the work, it will be okay. I hope. I don't know, right? I don't know. It'll be all right.
Did you grow up Orthodox?
Yes.
You did. So this is
modern
just
Orthodox. So it wasn't so hard for me. It was sort of second nature.
How did you grow up? Because you've been, just for some background, you've been advocating for Israel on your podcast and covering that. So how did you grow up?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up interesting. I grew up a conservative. So my mom is Israeli. I'm Canadian, but I grew up I went to private Jewish school for half of my my academic for middle school, for elementary.
A Schechter or something.
I went to it was called Talmud Torah, and then Joseph Walensky. Yeah. So and then
we go inside baseball here.
Exactly. And then so I feel like it was indoctrinated in me at a very young age because I was doing half of my curriculum in Hebrew and Jewish, but somewhere along the lines, I became a very watered down Jew. I was Jewish culturally. Everyone always says culturally I'm Jewish, but, I didn't really love like the religious aspect. I didn't want to be bogged down by eating kosher. I loved eating seafood. I loved shrimp. I loved, you know what I mean? I didn't want the religious or the traditional religious, the religious portion to like ruin my life. Basically, that's how I saw it. And then, I ended up marrying a guy who was kosher, who was who grew up not modern Orthodox, but closer to that than where I was. And then we raise our kids now eating kosher and all these things. But I guess why I'm even bringing this up is because, I think when this whole thing happened on October 7th, it really ignited a fire within me, and it awakened a sleeping giant, right? Because what happened on October 7th really, like at my visceral core, it just really bothered me, where I was mad at myself for not really engaging in the Jewish culture as much as I should have and could have for all these years. And now what's happening is it's brought me really much, much closer to my religion, my heritage, who I am. And, like I said, I came into my marriage kicking and screaming, like, I have to be kosher now. I don't want to be kosher. And now it's like, I noticed something that, like, if you don't live by those things, they fade and they get very diluted very quickly. And then your kids will become, they might as well not be Jewish, because that's what's happening. And I notice it, like, living in LA, everybody's reformed. A lot of people are reformed, which basically they don't even know a word, and they don't even know, like, they don't know a prayer. They don't know a word in Hebrew. They are so disconnected from their Jewish heritage and culture. It's actually really sad. So you might as well not be Jewish, is how I see it. And I find that to be really sad. So if I feel like, if anything, on the positive, I think what this whole thing has done is brought a lot of unity in Judaism with people who have otherwise not really been Jewish, to kind of really rethink that and bring them closer to other Jewish people, to kind of really be proud of being Jewish and what Judaism is, and of Israel. And that's what's happened to me. And that is why I've been so active and so outspoken about it, if that makes sense.
Of course. Yeah, I felt the same way. I feel like I've said it before to other people, other guests since October 7th, where, it's amazing that what anti-Semitism and Jew hatred does to us is actually strengthens us and makes everybody feel more connected and closer, and a stronger sense of solidarity. I've definitely felt that. Although bacon does look very, very good.
Bacon does look good. And it is good, I have to say.
Oh.
But can I just say something on that point? Not about the bacon.
Oh, okay.
I think what has been super annoying and frustrating and actually really disappointing is the amount of Jewish people who've said nothing, who've been silent, who've done zero, and who are ashamed of either being Jewish or scared of speaking out, or kind of like just not partaking in in the atrocities that happen. And I'm like, especially with these people who have tons, like, big platforms, which then it makes what's happened is, I'm sure with you too, it's like, I feel like I have the burden on my shoulders to speak out twice as much or 10 times as much to make up for the fact that we are losing in numbers. And I think a big part of that is because a lot of Jewish people watered down their Judaism, and they didn't want to be bothered or annoyed by keeping these traditions of Shabbat and kosher and all these other, going to synagogue. Like, it was such a burden that they basically just, like, they sloughed it off and assimilated into, like, everyday life. And it eventually did water down over generations and through their kids and their kids' kids. And I find this to be a really sad state of affairs, a really
Sure.
sad state of affairs.
Does a part of you empathize with to a Jewish person out there it's been watered down for them, and therefore when they get othered in this way, singled out, it's amorphous and they don't know what to grab onto because they haven't been involved in tradition and the culture for so long, having come from that and come back? I understand the disappointment, but there's a part of me that I can understand why it must feel so confusing and not knowing where to turn. Like, how do I speak out on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people when I haven't really been close to it? I don't even know what to say. Like, one of the things that motivated me to start making the videos I was making, it really wasn't to reach anti-Semites or people who already hated Israel and had dug their heels in and made up their mind. A lot of it was aimed at these sort of people who felt compelled to speak out or felt a certain solidarity with what had happened, but they didn't know how to articulate it because a lot of the language has been so co-opted and so poisoned by by politics and by a narrative out there that I'm trying to combat a little bit, because they're like, well, I don't want to, it's watered down to the point where they've been put in a position where it feels like it's controversial or brave to condemn anti-Semitism or speak out on behalf of Israel. And I agree with you. That's the saddest thing ever. How is it brave to speak out against anti-Semitism on behalf of Israel? That just sheds light on it. But do you empathize with people in that position? Like, what have you had encounters with people to try to help?
So that's a great question.
Grounded?
I'm going to say two things to that, right? Because I think there's one piece of it that is very, like you just touched upon it, which is this bravery piece of speaking out. Like, I have gotten so many people in comments about how courageous I am for speaking out or whatever. And I'm like, well, how is that correct? I'm like, thank you, but I don't see it as courageous. I see it as like the right thing to do. To me, this is not a question even of Jewish versus not Jewish. This is really about good versus evil. Either you're on the right side or you're on the wrong side. Either you're like for a terrorist, like a terrorist organization, or you're not. So I think it's become very convoluted. So that's the first thing. So I don't think it's being brave or courageous. What I do think, though, to answer your question about if people are confused and they're not sure, of course I have compassion for that to some extent. But then ask questions, try to learn. Don't just don't just like bury your head in the sand and pretend it's not going on. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't just affect Jewish people. It affects everybody. This is not something that it's like only for they only hate Jews, Hamas or who. I mean, it's like they hate everybody, the Western civilization. I understand, but then educate yourself and ask questions. But the part that really bothers me are people who are gaining their information from TikTok videos and regurgitating wrong information, things that are not factual, things that are not even legitimate. And like the fact that we've gone so far on the other side where people now, 20% of people from the ages of 18 to 24 actually support Osama bin Laden. 20% of that age group support Osama bin Laden. I mean, this is, or like, the LGBTQ community for Palestine. This is like nonsensical. If you went there, you'd get killed in 2 seconds. They'd throw you off a building, cut your head off, and you'd be done. To me, it's like idiocy. It's like it's such stupidity. That's what just gets me at my core incensed, because it's like stupidity. That's what the people who are like Jewish, who are not saying anything because they don't understand. Yes, I get it, but learn and then maybe just be much more, don't be as antagonistic as I am, but maybe you can say, like Hamas is a bad thing, I think terrorism is bad.
You touched on it before, because you said like, whether you're Jewish or not, and whether you have a strong affiliation with your Judaism or a strong connection to Israel, this is about cruelty versus humanity. This is not about, well, stand up for the Jews because that's your tribe. A lot of the times people would assume like, oh, you're just biased. Especially in my videos, I'd get accused a lot of, oh, you have a bias because like you're only selectively speaking out. And it's like, well, two things can be true at once. Subjectively speaking, you're right. Like I have a kinship with a with a culture and a religion and a people that I belong to, of course, and everybody has that. It's like we have family members and friends and associates that we are closer to than other issues in the world that are going on. But objectively speaking, it seems pretty obvious to see where the good is and where the bad is in the matters of degree here for anybody, Jewish or not Jewish. So in a way, I'm of two minds on this. There's a part of me that wants to be compassionate and empathetic for people who are confused, and there's a part of me that's like, really? GoPro videos of people getting beheaded and people screaming in celebration, and you're confused about this? Like, so I don't know. I'm of two minds about it in some ways because I don't want to cut people out. At the same time, I'm like, if you don't know where you stand after October 7th, then your moral compass is broken. Like, it's not my job to fix it. It's like, what's going on here?
That's my point. It's a moral compass issue. And the fact that, like, when you have, like, presidents of Harvard, for crying out loud, who can't they cannot condemn Hamas. I mean, this is like, what world are we living in? It's like absolutely absurdity. I've never seen anything
only
like
if what Hamas does leads to harm. We have to conduct an investigation.
It's like so you can't make this shit up.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Have you lost friends over it?
Yeah, I've lost. Listen, you know what it is? This is what I've lost. I wouldn't say I've lost.
Instagram friends?
I've lost. I've lost followers. I've lost like business associate friends, like people who I was like very friendly with in the business world or in the social media world or in the like podcast world.
Those people.
Yeah, like friends that are convenient.
LA.
Yeah. Or like convenient friends. But you know what I will note? I will say what I notice a lot. I see a lot of people following me who I thought we were friends, like maybe not buddy, like we're like BFFs, but like definitely a notch above just being, cordial cohorts in business kind of thing, who have not said a word. They'll watch my stuff and they won't say a word. They haven't, and they'll talk about me behind my back, or they'll block me or to other people. Like there's all these like really like nasty other like ancillary things that are happening on the side because they don't agree with they don't agree with my stance. And so we're not really speaking. We don't text each other anymore. I'm not in the chats as much. You know what I mean? Like I kind of been ostracized. Right. I know. And with business, like the truth of the matter is I do have a podcast, and when I'm dedicating an entire episode to Israel or the Israeli-Palestine conflict, sponsors don't want to be in that episode, and rightfully so. So yeah, have I lost opportunities? Definitely. But at the same time, I really believe that, I'm really doing the right thing, and I cannot let my moral compass be guided by fear and shame or kind of doing anything that goes kind of that's antithesis to what I'm actually about. And I do believe that water does find its level, and you gravitate to things that you're much more that you're much more in sync with, and things will work itself out the way they should. Because if I didn't believe that, it'd be kind of sad. And it has. I mean, listen, I found my tribe. I mean, people who I otherwise would have never had relationships with, spoken to, had conversations, have now become like dear friends of mine. And look, I met you through this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. So wait, the relationships I found also like with one's audience has, for me especially, like I'm sure you relate to this too. There are people who left who maybe had a surface relationship with my content where people said weird things like, man, I loved your impressions and Prince Harry and Gary Vee, but forget it, man, unfollowed, bye. And I'm like, what people out there, and I say this on stage, I'm like, which followers of mine, because I lost like 14,000, which followers of mine like Jordan Peterson impressions, Gary Vee impressions, Prince Harry impressions, and Hamas? Like, that's a very strange cross-section. But I found that the people who did come on board, like, it deepens the relationship with those who follow you and then get to know another side of you. So in a way, there's something new that forms out of all this. So you shake off the rust of people who don't share your values. And frankly, if you don't share my values at that fundamental level, like respect for my life and family members and fellow Jews to exist freely in a world, like if you don't share that, if we can't agree on that, then I don't think I want you laughing at my jokes, because comedy and entertainment and this kind of world we live in has to exist in a world where we respect each other. So I felt like,
I agree.
Like,
I
it
think
just
that's
deepened the relationship.
it does deepen the relationship. I think that I've gained a lot of respect from people who followed me who otherwise didn't know where I stand on something or had like a point of view. And with that being said, on the other side of the token, yeah, I lost a ton of people who are totally like, exactly. They love my content. They love my fitness stuff. They love my personal development stuff. They love all the stuff I do, but because I'm pro-Israel, I'm now like, I'm a horrible person. How dare I have a thought that, you know what I mean? Like it's so, or stick to fitness, stick to this. What are you doing talking about this? I get a lot of that. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is, like, am I going to acquiesce to those people because I'm nervous and scared of not having a higher number on Instagram? Or am I going to like do what's right and be true to myself and like double down and triple down on my beliefs? And the truth of the matter is, I think it's pretty obvious what I chose. And, for those people who don't like it, they can go find some other person to follow that's doing squats and lunges and talking about being, successful and being bold. There's a ton of us out there. There's, that's what social media is. A bunch of motivational people, a bunch of fitness people. If I'm not your cup of tea because I like Israel, well, I guess then, sorry, I guess this
Jennifer,
relationship.
what about all these people that you got into ridiculously good shape who are now marching for Palestine? I mean, that's rough. They're breaking into Grand Central Station with quads that you helped build. Oh, good God. That's why they're able to climb up onto the flagpoles, because she taught them to
exactly. They took the techniques and the strategies that I gave and the habit building, that I gave them. Exactly. I don't know.
They got people on their shoulders. Hey, they look great, but their views are just horrid.
There is something, now that you say it, there's something like especially scary about someone focused on habits and hustle without a moral compass. You know what I mean? Like accomplish, but no idea like what right and wrong is.
Oh boy.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's especially in your space, it's like, it's almost like necessary to be like, where do you stand on this thing? Because this is kind of important. Yeah. Like, what's the point of everything else if you can't figure this thing out?
I agree, but
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally. But I do believe that social media is like an alternate reality, right? Like on social media, the more polarizing you are, and the more you do take a stance, the more the more traction you get, the more successful you get, the more followers you get. When you're like too in the middle and you don't really stand for anything, you kind of get watered down anyway. And what I find interesting though, like in real life, it doesn't work that way. But what I was going to actually ask you, Ami, is that like you did something with Candace Owens, right? Like recently or something?
So, yeah, we had a little schmooze.
Right. Does she, I thought she's pro-Palestine, isn't she?
Well, it's a little more complicated.
Even though that she's a Republican conservative, I know all that, but
I think in her case it was a little bit more complicated than that, where she, there's like you can get psychoanalytical about it, but she was like a fan of my comedy before all this, so that's how she sort of knew who I was. She had reviewed some old video, like she had like done some videos about like some impressions of mine, so she was like a fan from online stuff. But then when this whole thing started to happen, she was drawing very strange, bizarre connections and dots between, like, I think this bad experience she had with the Jewish community that's more left of center, that before all this maybe cried wolf too often about anti-Semitism where it doesn't exist, so that when it did exist in real time in front of all of us, very obviously, she had this instinct to not want to call it like it is. And maybe that happened in the case with Kanye because she had a personal connection with him, but she had this stance of being against cancel culture and against censorship, and therefore nothing is worth canceling and nothing is worth censoring or calling out. There was a bit of an instinctual, bizarre, stance to take, where also being surrounded at where she is in the environment around a lot of pro-Israel views, maybe it called some things into question, and she was questioning things and putting out statements on Twitter that were questionable, curious, and I took issue with some of her tweets, particularly about how thinking that Jews were weaponizing anti-Semitism to silence people into compliance. And to her credit, she reached out after I had tweeted at her a pretty firm tweet about it. being critical, and she invited me on her show to talk about it. And it wasn't under the context of like, we're going to have a debate. It was, let's like have a conversation. So we had like an hour-long conversation about Israel, about anti-Semitism. And I think because she didn't grow up with, around these issues and close to this issue, it was an opportunity to really just engage in dialogue, as opposed to when people say things you disagree with or you find troubling, you could either scream at it or you can talk to it. And I think ignorance is easier to combat than hate. So I would say she wasn't necessarily pro or against, but having a conversation that was constructive was probably the best way to tackle that. So we had a good constructive conversation about it. As far as what motivated everything like that, I can't really speak to anything beyond that. I can speak to sort of how I interfaced with her, and it was civil and cordial, and I think constructive, because there were moments in the conversation where she did, say, yeah, I'll have to think about that. I didn't know that, or I have to reconsider that. The next week on, she had Norman Finkelstein, so oh my God.
She wants you to say Candace Owens is an anti-Semite. Just say it.
She wants me to say it?
Yeah,
Jennifer wants me to say
I
it?
think so. Just say it.
So then she had on Norman Finkelstein the next week, and he said, Candace, Ami's full of shit. No, so I don't really know. But I do think there's we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And there are like, I do think that we can learn as a community that like calling Whoopi Goldberg and Richard Spencer the same thing is not an effective thing to do, and not a correct thing to do. Like, to throw around, anti-Semitism as an accusation at everything that seems questionable. I think we have to be more nuanced and fine-tuned than that, because then what happens is when we see it in the streets of the UK and France on college campuses, and then we're calling it out, there were some people who like say, well, I don't know, like, you guys are always calling it out. So like, it was an example of someone who I think, because you overuse a term and try to find racism where it doesn't exist, that when it does exist, it's hard. Some people meet it with suspicion,
Well, I just saw a video. I mean, to be honest with you, I just saw one video with her and Tucker Carlson from a bit ago, and it was really off-putting. And I was surprised because, number one, she works with Ben Shapiro, who's like another Orthodox Jewish person. Doesn't he run Daily Wire? So I would think that would have been maybe a combative. Like, I don't know where it landed now. You probably have more. I'm curious. What happened? Like, is everything fine now? I mean,
so I was sort of found myself after I had that conversation in like the center of a hurricane of what was going on internally at like the Daily Wire. And then her and Ben were on Twitter duking it out, which I think is just not a place when you work together in a massive media entity. That's probably not the best place to hash out anything.
Right.
But I think I can't speak to the inside soup of what was going on there. All I could see was from the outside perspective. They sort of put a lid on it, and Jeremy, the head of Daily Wire, put out a statement, and then Candace had a baby and is on maternity leave. So like, it's kind of done, at least for now. The fires were put out, and it is what it is. I'm happy with the fact that her and I were able to sort of have a civil conversation, and I just think that is an example of how to move the needle in a more constructive way. Not everybody, I think, would qualify to engage with, but in this case, like, if somebody's not aware of something, that's very different than holding a hostile view or antagonistic view.
No, I agree. So. I agree. Like, I understand what you're saying, but
the Tucker conversation was also bizarre, because he was like, I mean, I feel bad for what's going on in Israel, but fentanyl. I'm like, what are we talking about here? It's like the main issue I had with all of it was, it wasn't as if the Jewish community was demanding that Tucker or Candace or anyone in the space care more about Israel than the Jews do, but it is as if they were demanding the Jewish community care less.
Exactly.
That was and it's like, you're offending the fact that we've been on the crusade against, people, against racism, against white people, or against, domestic issues that we have in this country. So you caring so much about Israel is offensive to us. And we're like, what? That doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it makes zero sense.
Jews who are conservative and right-wing have been speaking out of those issues too all this time. So like, it got a little bizarre and a little weird. But anyway, yeah.
They're very bizarre, weird people, so it's not shocking.
But she, sorry, I was going to say, she's so polarizing, which is why she does so well in her.
Oh, you were making that point about online.
That wasn't my point. That's like another point. It's like, you can walk and chew gum. It's both points. You know?
Yeah.
I think she knows what she's doing more than Ami does. I think she's a little bit more calculating than.
Yeah, you think so? Yeah, I would venture to agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I think she's very good at what she does, and she knows, even if it's subconscious, she knows what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Yeah, no, she's very strategic.
I would have been inclined to agree until you talk to someone face to face and you get a different sense a little bit about where they're coming from. It's just it changes you a little bit.
I think it's more instinctual where I don't think she even has a deep opinion about it like you're saying, but I think she knows in her gut like this is going to play. This is not going to play.
Well, then
that's where she works from.
You're ascribing a motivation there a little bit though.
Yeah, I think her motivation is views.
I agree.
Notoriety.
I think you're not giving her enough credit where credit's due. I think she's very clever and knows that if you're going to spark a lot of attention and heat when you are speaking contrary to what would be considered, like she knows that that's going to happen. I think to your point, I agree actually.
But the two things are not mutually exclusive. Knowing something will be provocative, and genuinely believing that thing as you say it can still be one and the same.
Yeah, they can be.
Think about that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that she's unaware like that it's going to be provocative. And maybe in certain cases, I was surprised to find out that she claimed to me, at least I could take her at her word when she told me about certain tweets she made. Like, I didn't think that would get the reaction. I was shocked by that, which to me maybe just highlighted an insensitivity or an ignorance to say like history of Jewish persecution for thousands of years and the pattern. She said a line to me in the conversation that was pretty revealing where she's like, well, Jews are doing well. And I was like, 75 years or so, like the past few, this generation. But like, I think there's a lack of awareness of like the decades and centuries and thousands year long persecution of Jews that we've seen in society after society. And I don't think she's as aware of that as we might assume she would be because we grew up totally affiliated with that.
But don't you think that she would, oh, sorry. See, no. I was just going to say like, she's like, she's peers with Ben Shapiro, who's exceptionally outspoken on what's going on here. You don't think,
she's here. Candace, do you want to say anything to Jennifer?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I know, but no, but it's true. Like,
she's right behind you, actually.
Conversations that you and I are not privy to, okay? You don't think that, like, she would have this background information or she would have a conversation with him or they should have a dialogue? Like, what? Like, the first time she's hearing about this or she's asking these questions into the ether when she's, like, speaking to Tucker, when her boss is, like, out there, speaking so... I think articulately and eloquently about it, but
yes, but if I'm being gracious, it's like, you work at Ben Shapiro's, I don't know to what extent he's the boss of her. Like she's on contract there. It's a huge company.
No, but you know what I mean? They work together.
But he's in Florida. She's in Nashville. Like, she might operate in, if I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, it's possible she operates in her own lane with her own team, and it's sort of delegated that way. And to the extent that they get into like deep, genuine conversations about it, I don't really know. And this stuff only comes into the forefront, like when it comes into the forefront. All of a sudden Israel's front and center in this very visceral, painful way. And I think there is for a lot of people in this sort of weird neoconservative, like isolationist strain that has like surfaced. There's a lot of post PTSD from bad U.S. domestic policy about Iraq and impulsively getting into wars. So they lump Israel and the U.S.-Israel relationship in with that. Oh, we like it's Ukraine or Russia or like any other foreign entanglement when they don't really understand the history of the strategic alliance that deeply. So it's like I just don't want to get involved in anything. So like no, we're not going to like care about this issue because that's their business. So. If I'm taking a generous interpretation of it, it's not like she was completely unaware of all of that. But again, like it definitely warrants a part 2 conversation to get into it at some point. But I can only go with what she was, relaying to me in the moment. Where I was just saying, we're really getting into the weeds here, but like, I just thought genocide is just wrong. No, what genocide is wrong. Like, I'm just saying genocide is wrong. What's wrong with that? I was responding to genocidal language. I'm like, yeah, but like the slander that's been going on against Israel of this accusation of genocide. So like, I maybe take for granted how exposed I am and in it I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think in order to effectively change minds and persuade and move the needle, you have to take people at their word when you're interfacing with them, especially face to face.
Yeah.
It's like Scott Galloway was saying to us when we spoke to him, and I know you spoke to him also, like the same way we give Elon Musk a pass, like she's not just some person. It's her job to be informed. She has like a budget and a team and a show. Yeah. And it's her, that's what she does for a living, be informed.
100%.
By the best people in the world. And like to just say, oh, but she doesn't know about this this one is like, oh, sure, you can excuse it if you want, but why are we excusing it? Why are we
100%.
excusing it?
I didn't.
You know.
I went on the show to confront it. That's the whole thing.
Not you. I mean,
No,
all right,
I don't
so
think he's
back-
talking about you.
I'm
but
just saying, like,
I agree
you're
with
right.
you, though. You're acting as if she doesn't have a team of people and her own. Like this is somebody who this is where we're in a problem, right? Because we're people who have big voices and platforms are spewing, even if it's not necessary. Like maybe in her case, it wasn't like bashing Jews, right? But it's like it's people with a big platform who are making people rethink Israel in a negative light is dangerous when we are such a limited amount of people as it is. And when we are losing in numbers and when, you know, like, I think it's not only is it not safe, I think it's like, it's ignorant and it's scary.
Yeah.
Scary.
And it's creating, and also even like in the Kanye stuff that like, you could write off what he's saying as, oh, he's just crazy, he's off his rocker, he's out of his mind. But him being permitted to say those things, like the Overton window that gets open of like, you can say this about Jews now. And like, yeah, he'll get a little punished for it and lose a few licensing deals. But now everyone can kind of talk about Jews in this suspicious way. This toxic culture of anti-Semitism is sort of back in the
zeitgeist. Yeah, no,
and
that's
it's allowed to be spoken about so openly. Twitter is just full of it. All I'm relaying to you is I agree with what you're saying in a sense, but I'm relaying to you my report from having interfaced and had a conversation with her about it. What do I think was going, like, you know, we're trying to ascribe motivation here. Is it malice? Is it ignorance? Is it all these things?
I think it's irresponsible. That's the word I'm looking for.
Irresponsible.
It's irresponsible because you are giving somebody in a platform where you're giving somebody an idea that maybe they should rethink, like, oh, maybe Jews aren't great, or maybe I shouldn't like Jews, or maybe Israel's really not something I should be promoting.
It all starts.
Like, that's what I'm saying. You're giving them like that ammunition.
Introducing the suspicion. Yeah, you're introducing suspicion into the conversation.
Yes,
it's like really
and it's
dangerous old poison.
And that's the problem.
When I saw it happening in her case, like just to wrap it up, it was like I went to confront that exact thing and say, I know you might not realize what you're doing when you're doing this, but this is what's happening. And now and the second question you're asking is like, after coming away with it, what do I think was motivating it? And I would say it was more motivated by a lack of awareness to what was really going on than anything malicious, because we were able to have a civil conversation about it. And even though she might be aware of something that might be provocative or cause a stir, to the extent that when you talk to people, like, you have to assume it's in good faith and that they're genuine in what they're telling you. Otherwise, it's going to devolve and you won't get anywhere with anybody.
Right.
I do think there's a through line, though, with what you were saying before about other influencers and people in the media not stepping up and talking about it, and then sort of what we're talking about with Candace. Like, I think there's something cool going on in the Jewish community of people who wish to acknowledge it and want to be aware of it. Of like, there's like a bit of pride going on of like push your friends to say something. Like, don't excuse it. Like don't be gracious about it. Be proud about it and be strong about it. And like, it's not the time to be gracious. It's the time to be strong. And I think the world's not used to that. The world's not used to Jews behaving that way, and it's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. I mean, like, I think I see it with you when you talk about your peers and colleagues, and I think it's like a wonderful thing personally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was moved by Scott Galloway's thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not gracious at all. I mean, I'll shame you if I have to. I have no problem doing that. And, you know, Scott, by the way, so Prof G, I always forget his name is Scott Galloway. I always call him Prof G.
Prof G.
But he's been on my podcast I think twice or two or three times. I've been on his. I really like him. I like his perspective. I like the way he's very thoughtful in how he speaks.
Yeah, very measured, very thoughtful.
Very
measured.
measured.
Crisis right now.
Yeah,
Jennifer, we're in a crisis right now, a total crisis of young men who have no idea where their moral center is. I mean, where are all the celebrities and Jewish people talking about this? Where are all the other Jews? I mean, we got Jessica Seinfeld, Deborah Messing. Where is everybody else? I mean, we're in an absolute crisis right now.
Oh my God, that is so good. Can I ask you a question? What do you know? What's your number one impersonation that you're most well known for?
Probably Gary Vee, right?
Gary and Jordan?
Yeah. What's my
people loving Dave Ramsey these days, which I didn't know he had such a huge following, but I started doing
really?
Dave Ramsey. But I don't know if he's my number one. But Jordan Peterson is
Yeah.
often requested, because he's so impactful on the society at large, and it's like it's heavy, Dave Ramsey has been getting a lot of requests too lately. That is quite a mess, baby doll.
Oh my God, you sounded exactly like him.
That is quite a mess. Let me tell you, what is your income, Jennifer? Habits and hustle. What is your income? Because it starts with saving. Not just the Jewish people, but your income. Yeah.
I love it.
It comes
so
in waves,
good.
different waves. There's different ways. Prince Harry gets a lot of buzz these days.
Okay, do Prince Harry.
Prince Harry, well, we're refugees too, Em and I. It's not just happening in Israel. It's disgusting. I think worse than terrorism is unconscious bias. That's how you get in shape. You build better habits for getting rid of modernizing the conversation around unconscious bias. So it's a dangerous time for me and my family. But we're doing squats, so it's okay.
I'm still
it.
working out the Jennifer. Yeah.
What?
I'm still working out a Jennifer Cohen, the real Jen Cohen impression.
I know.
My favorite lately has been Kumail Nanjiani. You know Kumail Nanjiani?
No. Oh.
From Silicon Valley.
Like
I love him.
Guy.
Yes.
Do the voice. You'll know it as soon as you do the voice.
Yeah.
It's Kumail Nanjiani. Listen, I want to do stand-up, but I don't want to break my back doing it. Michael loves my Kumail Nanjiani. So we're talking to the real Jen Cohen about, I got in crazy shape when I did the Eternals because, you have to look like a Bollywood actor, and they're just, totally jacked, So, but I can't really do it. I can't say everyone can do it because I ate, only chicken breast and broccoli for, 6 months. It was crazy.
Oh, that is amazing. Do you know, are you friends with Elon Gold?
Sure. Yeah. I'm in a lot of, I've just had him in a lot of Jewish sketches recently. I don't know if you saw any of those, but
I didn't see. I mean, I follow both of you, but he does a great Donald Trump.
Oh, I know he does Trump. He's just his is good. His is good. There's a lot of different Trumps, so many Trumps. So we're doing squats. We're getting healthy. We're building habits, wonderful habits, hustle. I'm hustling to get in for 2024. Elon is a friend. Yeah, we just did a show together here in New York. Yeah, we've been on the circuit. Known him a long time. I know he's been on your show too.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I really think he's so funny. How about, do you like, I'm not just naming the Jewish comedians, but that Modi guy, do you like him? Are you friends with him too?
Yeah, great stand-up.
Dear friend.
He's a great stand-up. Yeah, there's in the Jewish, Jewy comedy, the Jewish world. You got Elon, Modi. There's a few people who can really, what's been fun is there's very few people in the sense of Jewish pride and Jews really doubling down on their Jewish identities. It's been a cool revival to see the artists and people coming out ridding themselves of the false hierarchy of coolness that is inside community stuff and the secular world, which we deem as cool, and the Jewish world, which we say, okay, that's for us, but it's just for us and we don't put it out there. And I I'm working with my band now on a hybrid English Hebrew record. A lot of people are just sort of no, the paramount identity right now is that we are Jews and we're going to own that. And I like that that's been happening for all the different creators out there.
That's interesting. I mean, so I'm curious, are you somebody who does more secular stages and work? You're not just because Elon, to me, I think he's great, but he does a lot of very insular Jewish stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in both worlds more. On the music side, most of the music I've ever done is secular. And more recent, and I've always participated in the Jewish music scene, but I've been on that other side too. And then a lot of the impressions I was doing and comedy stuff I was doing was in that sort of weird intellectual dark web space, and then tech guru stuff. So that appeals to a mass audience. But what's special about doing comedy for the Jewish community is, a lot of different comedians can make jokes about airplanes or marriage or food or family. But how many people can joke about services in your temple or synagogue? If you can do that, I think it puts you in a very good and very unique category, a sliver. And the more deeper I've gone in, like I said, talking about Israel with my audience, but also doing comedy for the Orthodox Jewish community I'm a part of, and being able to talk about those things, I think that's a special thing. So I don't shy away from being able to do both. So I sort of dip into both.
Did you move to New York? Why did you? Because a lot of times when people have a family, they usually move to the opposite. They come to the West Coast because it's easier to to raise a family here because New York is it's a grind.
Yeah, I'm in Jersey. I'm in the suburbs of
Oh,
Jersey.
you're in Jersey.
I'm not like dragging kids in strollers on a subway.
The New Jersey part of New York.
The New Jersey part of New York.
Jersey
East
part.
Coast.
The East Coast. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, when are you coming back here? I got to wrap this. Can we do this? Can we do part two some other time?
Absolutely. I'm every couple of weeks or so, every other month, I'm in LA for some kind of work stuff, gigs, things like that. So we'll definitely be in touch. And we'll totally do a part two.
And we want to mention you have a book coming out.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, thank you. So first, it's a book. It's actually it's the paperback of Bigger, Better, Bolder, and it comes out January. I can't remember the first week of January. But you guys can get Bigger, Better, Bolder now in hardcover or soft. When does this come out? I don't even know when this comes out.
Oh, probably Monday.
Yeah, a couple days.
Oh, okay. That's easy. That's a fast turnaround.
So Bigger, Better, Bolder, The Real Jen Cohen, Habits and Hustle. It'd be really great if by part 2, when we do this, we are totally jacked.
Yeah, that's one. Well, listen, work on it now.
And we'll
Start.
do it shirtless.
Yeah, then you can do
one
shirtless.
small habit at a time. I'll start doing walks. I like the walks because running, I can run for a minute and then I'm like,
you can walk.
I like walking.
By the way, walking is way better for how old are you?
37.
You're 37. Okay, well, you got a couple of years in you. But like
I feel 60. I feel 60.
Oh gosh.
I got 4 kids at home, so I do a lot of dad squats, which just means bending over, picking up a kid. Yeah.
How old are your kids?
They're 10, 8, 6, and 3.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of kids.
So this arm is in really good shape. I'm like this part here and this like rib,
the
holding, that part is jacked. And my calves are like just on fire. The rest is just a soft pillow.
Can I tell you like
we'll a little,
can I give you a little hack, a little life hack?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Working, I think if you like did a 20-minute like strength train, if you started to work out regularly, like in the morning, it actually gives you way more energy. You'll get way more stuff done once you build that habit. People think that when you work out, like if you have you don't have enough energy to work out or you'll be too tired, but it's actually the opposite. If you add that to me, that's like the number one habit to be successful with everything else in life because it has like an accumulation effect. It's accumulative for your brain, your focus. What?
I love bread. What about bread?
Well, you can eat bread. Who tells you can't eat bread? Just don't eat like a loaf of bread every day. But,
Fine. I'll cut it down to 1 loaf instead of 2 in my sister.
It's better than nothing.
Bread.
What?
Yeah.
You know what by the way, you know who you look like a little bit? Your sidekick here?
Michael.
You know who you look like? But a younger version of Rabbi Shmuley. Has anybody ever told you that?
Oh, boy.
Shmuley Mateo, you've been watching Shmuley? You've been watching Shmuley? Oh, my God.
He's so sensationalistic.
He has spectacular eyes. I'm going to take it as a compliment.
He has a bit of a harassment fetish, though. He's going out into the city saying, harass me, I'm Jewish, harass me. I think, what are you doing, dude?
And we've all seen him shirtless.
Yeah, that's true. We have, actually. We have. I just think
he's just going to the streets of New York City looking for toddlers to kick him.
You want to kill me? You want to kill me?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a stroller, Shmuley. It's a sleeping infant. She just gave me the finger. No, she's just going like this. She's an anti-Semitic baby. I found an anti-Semitic baby in Times Square. Much love, Shmuley.
He does do that, though. I think he's so he loves to be very sensationalistic, it's a little
we
bit.
got to have him on. It's 2 twins.
We're trying.
I think that would be a fun.
Yeah.
I want to take him to task on that a little bit, like going to daycare centers looking for toddlers and saying, "Did you just kick me, you anti-Semite?" Anyway,
you have to. Let me know
The
how
Real
it
Jen
goes.
Cohen. Thank you so much. Habits and Hustles, the name of the podcast. The book is
Bigger, Better, Bolder.
Bigger, Better, Bolder, out now. And we'll see you for round 2 next time I'm in LA. And I promise I will be jacked.
Even if you're not, I still want to see you for round 2. How's that?
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you, Jennifer. And thanks for being here at Ami's house.
Absolutely.